Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We have 10 games in the NHL that we'll discuss some of them, to some news around the league. A longtime general manager has been placed on administrative leave. We have Carey Price news. We have other things. We'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about the New York Mets. The hat I wear. They're still looking for a GM. They're the only team in baseball looking for a GM. They've limited the market to the point where now people are still turning down the job just when they're thinking about interviewing them, and they decline that they even want to be interviewed. So now Sandy Alderson came out the other day and was basically saying, well, maybe this market's not for everybody, blah, blah, blah. Of course, it's because he's there, but he can't say that, and he knows that, but he's getting paid, so he has to come up with a ridiculous excuse. So now the latest is they're only going to hire a one-year GM. Think about that for a minute. Who in their right mind wants to move to New York on a one-year basis, get reviewed after that, and possibly get booted for Sandy Alderson's son the next year? Tell me anybody in their right mind that's going to go and do that job.
No one.
Nobody.
Not one person. Not even if you were like 75 years old and you had a year left of retirement, you wouldn't take that job.
Right, because just traipsing across the country would be bad enough. I get it. Some people might want to really work with Stephen Cohen. Fine. But you're not going to do it with that little job security, and they're not going to pay you as much as other GMs. Like, that's the other part that would probably be disappointing, is what your pay is actually, what your starting pay is. So I just think that that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Well, I mean, I have to say, because I've never been the biggest Met fan, but it is one of the premier franchises in baseball. It is in New York. It's not the Yankees, because the Yankees are the preeminent franchise, or one of the two or three preeminent franchises in the game. But it is a plum job, and
ask Steve Phillips. You know, he went from being Mets GM to being like the baseball guy for, like, I don't know, is it ESPN in Canada or TSN?
TSN, yeah.
TSN, right. So, which job do you think you'd rather have right now?
Yeah, it is a plum job, but you have to say that the reason that it supposedly is not a plum job, to the point that Theo Epstein and Billy Beane and a number of other people have turned it down, is because you've got maybe in part it's Steve Cohen's a multi-billionaire and he is involved in social media, so that attracts more attention. But it's because Sandy Alderson is there as sort of the brakes to be put on, probably by Major League Baseball, as because a lot of people were suspicious and fearful that a multi-billionaire like Steve Cohen, the richest owner in Major League Baseball, would go out and spend willy-nilly. And
here's a good example. Like, let's say I am that young GM, right? They hire me, and I've got this great idea. I've got the analytics. Let's go sign, I don't know, Chris Bryant for $18 million a year for the next 4 years. He could play third base. He could play the outfield. I run that to Stephen Cohen. He goes, run that by Sandy first. Like, you don't want that.
No, but the problem is
I got to convince two people to do my job,
right. And
not one.
And and as I mentioned to you before, the speculation, the rumored name that's been out there, I think, is Adam Comrie or Cormy or something of that nature. He was an assistant GM with the Nationals 7 years ago. He's been out of Major League Baseball since 2015. So they can't even get somebody who's like an assistant general manager in an existing organization. They're getting a guy who's been in private business for 7 years, and he's an analytics guy. So that means he's going to basically kowtow to whatever Sandy wants to.
Of course.
So it's
a report. Sandy will look at it, put it in the circular file.
Yeah. You had another thing about Shishirkin, right?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that for the show, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers, because
the
NFL has made a decision. They have they have fined Aaron Rodgers like $1.25. Like, basically $14,000 is the fine, But for Aaron Rodgers, that's like $1.25 to us.
Yeah, well, he's making, I think, around $40 million. So yeah, $14,000 is tip money.
Yeah. So it's like, so what did we really learn here? What we learned is you can break protocol in the NFL if you're a star and put the media at risk and your teammates at risk, completely lie about it, and it cost you $14,000, and then you could start the next game.
Well, I said
2 games later, he missed 2.
And I guess the team got fined like $300,000 or something like that. Yeah, exactly. They make multi-billions. But this is the thing. And I mentioned this on Monday when we talked about it with Kevin. Evander Kane got suspended for 21 games. Now we suspect that Evander Kane got suspended not only for the stupidity of a fake COVID card, but because they couldn't prove the other allegations in terms of spousal abuse and gambling. There was no paper trail, so they couldn't nail him on that. So like OJ, they nailed him on something other than the murder. In this instance, the NFL, it's not even a slap on the wrist. It's a tap.
Yeah, it's a tap. It's nothing more than that. The interesting thing is, I think part of it privately was all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers went back on that Fakakta show that he does and said, well, I do realize I'm a public figure, and if I've misled anybody about my findings, I am sorry. And it's like,
which is a non-apology apology.
Yeah, and of course, like one of the former football players in ESPN's like, listen, nobody believes you now, because in the end, it would have been just so easy to say exactly what you did from the beginning, but you didn't. So the fact that he didn't, and now he's trying to backtrack, nobody's going to believe him. So it's like
the only thing here is that apparently it's not going to be with any kind of negative ramifications. I mean, he lost a healthcare advertising gig, but that's not like one of his big ones. Last week, apparently State Farm didn't pull their ads, but like limited them to like 1/10 of what they usually do.
Oh yeah, they're showing Mahomes twice as much now.
Right. Easy. But more than likely it's going to come back. So, they're not going to cut Aaron Rodgers. They're probably, I would be surprised that they do
cut him.
I mean, me as a State Farm, I do subscribe. State Farm is my homeowners and my car insurance. And if they asked me, I would say get rid of him, because why do you want a guy who's not being honest being a spokesperson for you? That's what I would say.
Yeah. He just feels so entitled, doesn't he? At everything he
says.
Everything he says and does feels like just reminds you of somebody who's just so
You
entitled.
can't tell somebody you're immunized. You can't go on a conference call and tell the media you're immunized and then find out it's with a bunch of chemicals that don't work.
They're all entitled.
Well, not every. No, there's good guys.
No, I'm not going to say they're all are.
No. I'll say it's like saying, well, I don't want a politician who lies to me. Every politician lies to you.
That's true.
It's a question of degree. They're all whores. It's just a question of how wide they spread their legs.
Have a great day, folks. Just know that everybody.
There's the snippet that everybody will, the show will start with whores. There you go.
I started a website that was about positive energy, Mike.
Well, I'm the counterbalance. I'm here to provide the negativity.
Oh my God.
Yes, I'm here to provide the negativity.
I mean, we could sit there and talk about Aaron Rodgers, and he's like I say, he's entitled, and he does. He acts like crazy. It's frustrating because he's married to that girl who was married to Chris Pratt, and then following the whole thing of him, like I know I've met her actually. She's a really sweet person, and
Shailene Woodley. Yeah, I have nothing against. Look. You want to make your own?
No. She wasn't married to Chris Pratt.
No, she's engaged to him now.
Right, she's engaged.
No, but that's not. He was. Anna Faris was married to Chris.
Yeah,
Pratt.
she was married to him.
Well,
yes.
She wasn't Rodgers. No. Rodgers was somebody who was with Chris.
Yeah,
Pratt.
he was with Olivia Munn and then Danica Patrick, but neither one of them.
All right, I met Olivia Munn too. I met her before she was famous too.
Yeah, she's great. She's a beautiful lady.
No, she's really. But anyway, no, I don't know, whatever. But he always came off as so friggin' pompous, and you're like, oh, maybe he's just one of those guys. Like he's like the See, I was in the counterculture of my high school. Like I was the guy. I was the guy who wrote all the anti-school spirit things for the newspaper and all that crap. And I hated like pep rallies like with a passion. I thought all that was BS and craziness. Mike, you and I would have got along back then. I was like completely like that, and I hated because I was a high school quarterback. Remember, I was a quarterback.
Yeah, you were,
freshman team. So, but when I got out of that, because I hated the people involved, I really grew to hate people who act like the cool high school quarterback guy,
Yeah.
And he kind of stands up to that, like to me. Oh my God. That's just insane. Holy hell. All right, let's get going.
Let's talk about hockey.
We got stuff to talk about here. There's a lot of good games last night. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, November 10th, 2021.
I'm Michael Lagello, and today is the 46th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that's Russ's favorite song.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. No comment.
It's a great song, but not the only boat that went down in that lake. That lake is Lake Superior is thousands of
the lake they call Kitchigumi. Yeah.
Yes. All right, and I'm Hockey Buzz. I'm actually you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. I am Hockey Buzz. Watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Any Hockey Buzz goes through me in the entire world. This is a podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. I just had a conversation right before this that isn't helping this whole thing right now. Sorry, so I'm still in that frame of mind with an argument I was having with somebody right before I came here. So. Let's shift gears for a second. I was just polishing Eklund's crystal puck because, New Jersey did beat Florida last night. And
they did.
This thing just is never wrong.
Never.
It's amazing. It's been just uncanny lately. It was when you watched. He's still doing good. When it all comes down to it. The Panthers looked last night like a team that wasn't coached very well. And it was ironic that we sat there and joked about, they haven't lost a step or anything like that. Did you see that to Burnett at one point? Did you see him on the bench at all during that game?
I did. I saw them showing him, but I don't think that was a Burnett thing.
Were bizarre, Russ?
I didn't
get
that vibe.
Told him his grandmother just died. Like he really looked like he looked like he was about to break into tears.
Yeah, he looked upset at one point. I agree with you on that. I would say this. The 3-4 nights is a sort of valid excuse because they did hold it together the third period was a 4-3 score. So it was like it wasn't a blowout yet.
Yeah.
But starting Spencer Knight back-to-back was dumb. I don't know. There had to be a better option than that.
It was dumb, and, beyond dumb, it was also just like the looseness that they played with in both the Rangers and that game, honestly.
Yeah, defensively there was a looseness. I agree with
that. That is something that is a difference that we have seen now.
That's fair.
From Quenneville. Quenneville had them tight, and last night Barkov, to his credit, right after the game, came out in his press conference. He just nailed it. He said exactly what I'm saying now. He's like, we don't play like this. He's like, we play the way we played the last two games. It's just horrible. Like he was to give up all these chances, to miss, to lose battles, to just go soft, slow passes, soft, slow shots. Even when they were scoring, the goals weren't Panthers type goals. They weren't battling, crashing the net type goals. I mean, New Jersey, give them credit. They played with them, but New Jersey wasn't playing any better either. I mean, as far as that,
not really. No,
it was really just a sloppily played game, and then got into a really
the penalties were just bad for Florida.
Got into a really dirty game as it went on.
Hornquist was really dirty. I didn't blame Subban for going to the ref. I can't remember what the penalty was, but it was pretty bad.
To me, that's Hornquist trying to fill in for Quenneville in a way of saying let's get our act together.
I think so.
You know what I mean by that? It's he's the veteran.
He follows his principles, and that was his way. That's what Quenneville would do. He would have sent out a goon squad at that point. And since they didn't have one on the team, he took it.
He's let's get it together.
On himself to do it.
Yeah, let's get it. And telling his team, let's get it together. We got to stop this. We got to stop this. Their next game's against Pittsburgh. It's an important game for the Panthers because this is a team, if they're going to be what they're going to be, if they're going to be the favorite or everything like that they were in the first 10 games of the season, they have to show that they can bounce back a little bit better. And we'll see how that. So that's
they still have a great record, so we can't really go there yet.
Yeah. No, they still right. No, they are totally fine. Last night was interesting in terms of I thought you were seeing players like come into their own now that I don't think many people know, and I kind of wanted to talk about that today, like as my thing. Because
all right, so on a side, before we do that, and I'm more than happy to do that. Let's talk about the San Jose Calgary game for a minute.
Yeah,
because I do think San Jose. Hey, Kev. I do think San Jose gave a blueprint on how to beat Calgary, because I watched a lot of that game. I went to sleep a little bit early into the third period because I just never felt like the Calgary was going to win that game, even though it was tied. But that's just the way my mind worked, and my eyelids won that battle. But what was happening was, in between periods, they were talking about how you're not allowed to use certain words with Sutter, and basically this is a checking team, and everything's about checking, and everything's about forechecking, and you're going to get all your offensive chances off of that, and that's how you're going to win. And that was true when the Kings won the Stanley Cup. That is no longer true. And what San Jose did, and this was very smart on their part, and Mario Ferraro is not like a great offensive defenseman. What he did figure out was, you know what? I'm going to carry the puck in myself. I'm not going to slingshot it back. I'm not going to do any of those other things because that makes those guys a target then to get checked. I'm going to carry the puck in myself. Right. And when one or two guys goes over to me, we're going to start passing the puck around until we find the open guy and score. And Calgary had no defense for that.
It was really interesting. That's a really interesting point.
Well, I wanted to ask Kevin this. There's a couple things I want to ask Kevin, but starting with this one because it flies in the face of everything that we discussed yesterday. The Detroit Red Wings get 39 shots on Skinner, the third-string goaltender for the Oilers. They limit the dynamic duo of McDavid and Draisaitl to 1 goal. And lo and behold, the Edmonton Oilers lose. Shocking, Kev. I mean, my assertion has been if McDavid and Draisaitl are mere mortals, and they get below average goaltending, they're not going to win. And they didn't win against a team probably they should have beaten.
Yeah, I mean, they actually got pretty good goaltending. He played pretty well, the youngster did. But, it was interesting. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl were dangerous in that game. They just didn't, get it done. The one goal that Connor McDavid had, basically it was a talent goal, in my opinion. He beat the guy wide, and he got in on goal, and boom, it was in the net.
But Skinner did have the one giveaway behind. Skinner had the giveaway behind the net, which was awful, right?
Oh he gave a free goal to Larson. But
beautiful goals, though. I mean, that's got a couple like great goals.
From the Red Wings' perspective on that was the best and worst of that team all in the same game. Mm-hmm. One of the things that they have been able to do is to kind of do the unexpected. They can surge for 20 minutes because they have some pretty talented players now. But they also, haven't learned how to hold a lead yet. And you thought when they lost that 3-0 lead, like it seemed to me, they were, okay, well, it's going to be curtains. But then they kind of pulled it back together again and, played pretty well. But really, if it wasn't for Nedeljkovic, Edmonton, I think, would have won that game in the third. Like he was pretty good in that stretch. So, I came away pretty impressed with the Oilers last night. There's a lot of dynamics there in terms of their ability to, put pressure on you. But, the defense is still the defense. And, we just don't know what level their goalie is going to be and all that kind of stuff. But, here we were crowing about the Florida Panthers, and they looked pretty human.
Yeah,
we were just talking about that.
It was like, it felt like to me that was the first time that we saw, Quenneville not being there mattering a little bit. Like I felt like that in the Rangers game we saw it to a degree, and then in that game they just played completely like they weren't coached at all. And I felt bad for Burnett. They really just and Barkov afterwards said that. He didn't say anything bad about Burnett, but he's like, this is ridiculous. He's like, we can't play. We played so soft. We gave up so many plays. We gave up so many soft things. He's like, the last 2 games, we don't deserve to be in them. He said that, so.
I think that's an interesting analysis. Although I think, and I bet Quenneville would agree to this, and I know Bill Zito would. There were games where Quenneville coached where it looks like they weren't getting any coaching.
Yeah, no, that's true too.
So
that's true too.
But I know what you're saying, and I agree with you. It didn't look like you kind of with that game. You kind of thought if Quenneville would have been there would have been some adjustments.
Yeah.
That may have turned things around, and they never came.
You'd have seen some third and fourth lines getting more time. Like that's what you would have seen, and where the top that's what those old school coaches tend to do when that happens.
Yeah. Well, I also think Quenneville's lines historically have been one fast guy, one checking guy, and then he would mix them up, and then in the post game, when you'd ask how a player played, he'd say, "I thought he was okay," which means he was terrible. He was just terrible. Yeah.
Right.
So there should really be a handbook that you pass out to reporters as the translation to when Quenneville said.
Yeah, especially if you're a new reporter and you don't know what the deal is.
Yeah. You could see it every day, and it was kind of they played river hockey with the New Jersey Devils, and just like a team that has been so solid in all three zones. They played river hockey, and even their goals they scored they weren't Panther goals. They were just like they were playing up and down goals.
Well, what's interesting too about that Metropolitan division, I mean, if there's one team that really hasn't been able to rise up, even though I think we all are bullish on that team, it's the Devils. And they come up with a big win.
I think we have to say this about the Metro: there really isn't a bad team. Like there's no Arizona Coyote team in the Metro. There isn't.
No, and you're absolutely right, Russ. And it's going to be really even, and that's why I say they're never going to get 5 teams.
I'm still going to buck that for a while.
Nope, you're wrong. You're wrong.
So.
Yeah, well, yesterday. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, the big story from yesterday wasn't on the ice; it was off the ice, Kevin, and the suspension, I guess, of Bob Murray, the executive VP and GM of the Anaheim Ducks, pending an investigation. There wasn't anything specific except they said there were, I guess, harassment issues. It wasn't anything really stated, a specific incident, but and there's apparently is no time frame as well on this, but Murray's got I think he's in the last year of his contract, and there's been speculation about things off the ice that were not the greatest regarding him. But what have you heard on this? And
Aline Elliott did some good reporting on this, and basically she's reported that it comes down to his treatment of the employees primarily, and not just managerial employees, but players, staff members. And I got to say, just from wearing my reporter's hat, that I've actually witnessed what I might have called grumpy behavior, but you could also say that it was abusive behavior. I've seen them browbeat employees. I've been witness to it. That style just doesn't cut it anymore.
So you just think over the course of time, since he's been there forever, it's worn on people.
It has, and supposedly, according to Elaine, that she's a terrific reporter. She has reported that there was an incident that was already being looked at already. So it's not like we've heard about this, now we're going to look at it. They had instances that they've been looking at, and now they're doing a more extensive. It doesn't sound good.
No.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. It's an ongoing investigation, but and then you couple that with the fact that, and I know they're playing better this year, but what's gone on there for the last 2 years, when everybody on the planet who knows anything about hockey, knew that they didn't get enough goals and they were wasting John Gibson because of that. And they really didn't address that.
No.
And it's been better this year, but still not.
No, they're in a perpetual rebuild, is what it.
There's another facet in this too. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and they've allowed their defenseman Manson and Lindholm to get to unrestricted free agency this summer. And,
right.
Once you've gone this far, why wouldn't you explore free agency if you were a player? So I think there's, and I think Russ was alluding to that, there's on ice performance things that'll have to be mixed into this as well.
And the other interesting thing in this is, and I heard about this in May. So Jeff Solomon gets hired away from the Kings to the Anaheim Ducks, and he was known as one of the best cap guys in the league, really one of the better front office people in the league. He gets hired in May, and now he's the interim GM. Like, he was just with the Kings. Like, it is kind of a crazy situation in that regard, where he probably never even thought when he took that job that, this would happen this quick. You maybe, when you take a job, you might have aspirations for that job, but man, that's gone quicker. But to be honest, that could really help the organization.
Yeah, and on top of the two defensemen you mentioned, Kev, also Raquel is also a UFA at the end of the year. So there's another player who they're probably going to get pennies on the dollar at the trade deadline if they decide to move those guys. I mean, they'll get value because defensemen are extremely valuable.
They're going to have to move some of them.
They're going to have to move some or all of them, probably.
Yeah.
Well, there's other things too. When this came down and Stan Bowman lost his job, I was talking to a general manager, and he said, there's probably 31 other general managers who are now looking deep and said, what have I done over the last whatever years that, may not alone be enough, but, bad behavior by good people,
Yeah.
So,
as a preponderance of stuff that will pile up on you, and
right.
I mean,
but it is interesting. Like, I called it grumpy before, but I could see that would be the defense. So, I'm not abusive. I'm just a grump.
Right.
Right.
I would say I would hope that I know the difference. And to me, it seemed like he was berating the employee when I witnessed it.
Now, at the point where that's not acceptable anymore, Kev.
No, not at all.
That's what's interesting, because that was the feeling, that we've all seen people. There's lots of people in hockey that are like that. It's not, Bob Murray's not alone in this thing, and I wonder if people, I know people out there that I've kind of been worried about since this all went down myself. It was just like, man, I wonder if anybody's got something on him type thing, because you've seen certain things and heard certain things over the line. I wonder if it changes if it's a person who's moved to a different team. Like Murray's been there for such a long time. I wonder if it changes if you did something at another team and now you're on a different team.
I don't know why another team would go there, though. If any of these things prove out true, why?
No, but I'm saying somebody who's on another team now already, like in a successful position. He was on a different team before when I heard stuff that happened,
Gotcha.
that kind of thing. I mean, we saw with Glenville, it doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, that could be one of the 100 calls that Rick Westhead got recently. He got 100 calls.
Well, I mean, there is a general feeling out there that in the wake of everything that happened with Chicago, that maybe Gary Bettman, made it clear to the 31 other teams that you better get your house in order, and if there are questionable situations out there, that you better rectify them. And this could be one of them. We do know that in the last 48 hours there was a settlement of the Aaron Scaldi, Gerald Scaldi situation with Pittsburgh, which was probably going to be extremely ugly, because it involved, in terms of the management, it involved Bill Guerin and Mario Lemieux and the ownership of the Penguins. And now that if that's settled, I'd be surprised if there isn't a mum's the word all the way around in terms of
for sure.
So
for sure.
But the other thing in this is, the Akeem Alou situation is not resolved, right?
So the NHL said it was.
Right. And we know that other things are going to pop up. So it's fine for Gary Bettman to say that, but the league has to change too. It's nice to talk about culture change and to show videos and, to have memes about it and everything else. But this is the actual way to do it. And that more of this has to happen. And it really is only happening because people are stepping forward, not because it's all being fleshed out ahead of time.
Well, someone that I know and trust in the hockey world has heard my rant about the fact that, to remind everyone that the Blackhawks actually had what appeared to be an appropriate protocol for dealing with it, and it was totally ignored. And that, it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to make sure we have it in place. And he told me to keep beating that because I'm absolutely right. He said, it doesn't matter if you have all the rules on the books. If you don't have someone paying attention to it and standing up and the meeting and saying, I'm sorry, but, in our own policy here, why is Aldrich still part of our organization? Like, I get that, you may think you're moving ahead in a prompt manner, but from my chair, it doesn't seem like that. So.
But that story gets worse and worse with what came out yesterday, that he got even after he was gone from the Blackhawks, he got a second opportunity with the Stanley Cup. Russ, did you see that? Did you see
I didn't see that.
Yeah, no, I'll pull up.
Yeah.
He went to USA Hockey too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one thing about the settlement is, Mike is absolutely right. Like, we won't ever get the full story now.
We won't.
So that and though in fairness, Bill, who I know pretty well and who's always been a very honorable man, has said it didn't happen the way they said it did. Now, this is the problem with these type things is it is always they said, I say,
Right.
So I don't know what happened and in this, but we won't ever know.
Yeah,
So
Sure.
No. All right, getting back to some happy hockey news for a second. Last night, watching the highlights this morning and stuff like that, I'm just in the last couple of weeks, even noticing this, I'm starting to realize that there's a group of players that are just starting to emerge, that are just that, and you see this all the while. We see it all the time, but it's interesting to me. Like, there's players that you just don't think about, we don't talk about, but they're really starting to become forces. And they're really, are they going to stay forces, or is it just short term or what have you? But and I got a couple of them today. One's kind of obvious, one maybe not so much, but the one I wanted to bring up first was Neil Pionk out of Winnipeg, who is I don't know if you saw the goal he scored last night, which was ridiculous. Like, he made an incredible.
I did see it.
Spinorama at his own blue line, came in, fired a shot that was just like cat eyes, like no one's business. But then I looked at his stats. I'm like, how's this? And I know him. I've heard of him. I've talked about him, but I don't know. He's got 10 points in 12 games this year. And then, he is like another play in that game where he almost scores, makes a beautiful pass, and I'm like, geez, this guy, another American defenseman, right? And I'm like, this is just another.
I can explain some of that though, because he had those moments with the Rangers. He was putting up big points. With the Rangers, and he has an amazing shot. The problem is that there were times where he was very soft around the net, in the corners, and that just didn't sit well with the Rangers or their fan base. Now, I think with Winnipeg, knowing the kind of player Neil Pionk was, they're really accentuating the best of him. Yeah, and so that's what you're getting. You're getting the best offense of him, and he's just holding his own defensively, which is fine. A lot of guys do that.
Yeah. I mean, I was guilty of being too influenced by the American hockey program, who never really considers Pionk when it's looking at and and I know kind of the decision makers, and I've talked to them through the years, and it like you see it more in the NBA than you see in hockey. In the NBA, there are players who you don't consider them like top players, but someone has to get the points on the losing team, and I think Russ's portrayal of him is real accurate to the perception that people had of him. But I think I've been wrong on him. Like, I've watched him.
Well, I think I'm wrong on him too. But I'm just saying.
I watched him, and I think his game has grown, but he's still stuck with the old reputation. I guess is probably what
I think that's fair. The other thing about USA Hockey, Kev, like I remember interviewing LeBanc like a year into the NHL, and just asked him, "You were leading the OHL in scoring. You had 100 points. Why weren't you ever picked on any of the teams?" And he was just like, "They didn't want me." And so it does happen. It happens.
Yeah, and I remember through the years, people have always reminded me, it's not that we don't, like, we may not like not hate the player, but when you're talking about the best players in that group, like Pionk's a good player, but when you're measuring him against, Adam Fox and Seth Jones and Ryan McDonough, and he's not there.
He's on to something. We always say in the Olympics, it's good to bring in a player or two that are running hot, that are really on top of their game. Maybe they don't have the reputation, maybe there is a better guy reputation-wise to put on that team, but this guy's hot right now. And if he's hot in January, you could make an argument that he should probably be on the team because he's still going to be hot when he gets over there.
Good right now. Like I watched after watching that highlight, I went back and watched the first 2 periods of the game just to focus on him for a second. Because I remember him from New York and I remember all those things. I'm just like, he's 26 years old, so he's been around a while and his defense can take a little bit longer sometimes. But I'm like, and I was just like, man, he looks just too good not to be considered. Just in every play he's making. Another guy I wanted to bring up is Adam Ern. Adam Ern from Detroit, who has just made some beautiful plays last night too, but has been making these another 26-year-old, is coming into his own slowly. Another American, oddly enough, right? But he also, Kevin, it's just like I don't think many people have any idea who he is. You know what I mean? And
I'll tell you a funny story about that. When he being Yzerman acquired him from Tampa, where he had him.
Yeah.
I remember talking to some folks in Tampa, and I said, "Did you know that he had an affinity for Steve Yzerman?" And they had no idea for Adam Ernie, and they didn't seem to know that. Like they were as surprised as anyone that Yzerman wanted him. Like that's a guy that like Nemesnikov is another guy that Steve seems to really, really like. Well, he drafted him. Mm-hmm. He's a skilled guy. Yeah. Maybe he needs to, play a little meaner. But they sort of get that, but nobody got Adam Ernie until he got here, and they started giving opportunities, and he started to make plays like the one you saw last night, where he had a one-handed pass.
Yeah.
That became a dangerous scoring play. He was able to do it, and he's got just enough size to be effective as a hitter, and he's got just enough skill. Like he's a guy that can slide up and play into the second line.
Right.
He can't do it on a regular basis, but he can do it when you need him to, and because he just has just enough skill to do that. So that's a good observation about Ernie, who's a little bit better player than we all.
Yeah, he's been on a slow burn that way.
He really has.
Pre-draft, I was going to say, pre-draft, he was able to make those plays pre-NHL. So a lot of people were high on him. And that's why Tampa was high on him. He had a great wrist shot. He still has a great wrist shot. But his skating wasn't great, and he wasn't great in his own end. And I think even in his first year or two in Detroit, it wasn't all there. And I think Detroit has really brought the best out of him in those other things. So now that he can rely on the offense that he had early on, I think that's what's happened with him.
Right.
Well, leave it to our resident scout to really bring it home, because Russ is absolutely right about him. The problem is he was a disappointment as a draft pick.
Right.
They expected more from him. So, now he's a disappointment. And then, so you get labeled. And then when he did improve his game, like he never has gotten it back up to where, probably where the scouts hoped he would be.
Right.
But it is better than he was when he started. And he's a pretty useful player. I think he's part of the rebuild in Detroit. Like
he really feels like he is. And the other one is the last guy is maybe somebody who we have to talk about for the U.S. Olympic team. And that is Troy Terry, who now has 9 goals. And he's a 24-year-old, and I don't think a lot of people know who Troy Terry is, at all either. I mean, even he's got 9 goals, so more people know who he is now. But the reality is, even now, I think that people are just starting to understand.
I think he's more well known because of the Olympics.
Yeah, because of the shootout stuff. He
was their leading player on that team. In fact, there's another disappointment. People thought he and Ryan Donato were going to be. Right. It looked like they were going to be able to step in the NHL and get stuff done, and it didn't really happen. And I've asked Russ before, like, I don't understand Ryan Donato.
Yeah, he's playing well now.
Yeah. I don't know why he didn't do that at the start. He was ready.
It felt like he had more hype.
It did seem that way.
Like I thought of Donato, maybe because we knew his father or whatever. Donato was a name that I knew. Like I knew Ryan Donato was following it. But Troy Terry, watching him play right now, he's just so smooth and so solid. And 16 points in 13 games.
And we talked about it in the offseason. Troy Terry was on the market. He was being shopped around.
Yep.
And there were no takers. Well, at least there weren't any takers that Anaheim was getting what they expected to get back for him. I mean, he might have an outside shot for the Olympics because he's so great in shootouts. I mean, that's what he did. That's what he did for the Team USA in the World Junior in 2017, right, Russ?
Yeah.
So I mean, but they have TJ Oshie. So if they have one guy like that, if Oshie makes it, then maybe they would
still could have two. I mean,
yeah, exactly. But I mean, that being said, it's like, I mean, he's young enough. He's playing for a contract this year. That's a big motivator. So yeah,
he's on a team where he can get a ridiculous amount of ice time because they need the offense.
He's got a 9-game point streak right now.
Yeah,
it's like there's certain things that are just like that. Who would have had Troy Terry at a 9-game point streak before the season starts?
I think it's longer than that. I think it's 12.
Is it 12? Maybe 12.
You're
sorry, you're right. You're right. 12. Sorry, it's 12. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
impressive.
Do we want to? I think we have to mention, just because it was played out in social media last night. Cole Caufield, who is playing down with Laval in the AHL, the Utica Comets Twitter feed. I don't know if targeted is the right phrase.
It's pretty close to it.
Yeah, it was basically saying, I didn't see the specific tweet.
I can read it. I can get it.
Yeah, go ahead. But basically, it was like, okay, this, he's a skill forward, and I guess we're gonna take him out, or we're gonna do something. It was something along those lines. And Caufield's father, Paul, on social media was saying that his son had been bullied, which I don't know how. I don't know if expressing that online was the right avenue, because now this might invite more of the same, maybe not on social media, but in terms of teams going out and sort of targeting him. But I mean, you could say that skill star players have always been targets like that, but it has not been to this point where it was called out on. So it's like, come and bring your friends to see Cole Caufield get run into the boards by the Utica Comets.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the phrasing of it before.
Yeah, I'm going to get it. Hold on. I
retweeted
it.
It's a little bit tone deaf for the team to do that, given what's going on with the taunting and the Penguins standing up for the high school.
Very tone deaf. I agree. No, I think you're right. I mean, I also don't think
they should be fined. That's what I don't
think his dad did him any favors either, though. Like, I don't think.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, no, that's right. But it would have been fine for somebody to complain about that. And
here's the tweet.
You got it. Okay, good.
From the Utica Comets Twitter feed. Yo, call Caufield. Are you here? Everyone keeps saying you're here, but we haven't noticed. Did you not play in the first period? For the record, we know Caufield is the best player on the ice. Dude is unbelievable. 'Twas a joke. So they were basically.
No, but they didn't say that until after.
Right. Now I'm trying to find the original.
After there was a fallout, because it's like basically you're trying to turn the crowd against him via social media, and that's not what a team's social media account's not professional.
Yeah, and I'm probably.
Did they kill it? Did they kill the original tweet? Maybe
they might have.
They did eventually delete it.
Yeah, so unless
someone screenshotted it, that's why it lived on.
Yeah, I'll do a search to see if I can find the original.
Yeah, I mean,
I had it, but I can't find it now.
We've seen that. The problem we have is that we want to celebrate the clever tweeters, and sometimes if you're going to be clever, you go a bridge too far with your tweets. And you just don't know who you're going to inspire to do what. Is the problem.
Yeah, the AHL stepped in and made him delete the tweet, but the idea is they probably should have been fined too, because you don't really want to. It's good that they deleted the tweet, but I don't know if that's going to stop the next young person from doing this for another team. The idea is, I think it's okay if an organization has fun with another organization, because you're not singling anybody out.
Yes, I'm
I
with
think
you on
that's
that.
different.
I don't know too. I've had trouble a little bit. Here I live not all that far from Yost Arena, and Yost Arena is just a great old building, historic. It looks like a hockey rink from the 1920s and 30s. It looks the part, and there they have a tradition of singling out players and it's almost become like guys kind of like it. I think
all college games do it. It's not just Yost; they do it in other. I shouldn't say all.
They do it, but not quite to the extent.
Not to the extent they do. It's
Yost, as Red Berenson said to me one time, the amount of research that they do, like they had a recruit in, and the crowd noticed the recruit and made comments, to the recruit. Like they were so on top of it, Oh, here we go. Here's some Vince has got it for us.
Yeah, you are here.
Yeah, it is what I read. Yo, call.
Right, okay.
Are you here? Everybody keeps saying you're here, but we haven't noticed.
That was the original tweet.
Yeah, that was the original tweet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's unprofessional, but we've seen worse. So.
You're right, Kev. In the book I wrote about college hockey, Sticks and Stones, Brendan Morrison and Marty Turco and I had a conference call, and they went at great length to talk about that tradition and how.
Yeah,
it is.
I struggle with it a little bit because it really kind of goes against how I feel that kind of how you should act professionally. On the other hand, it really is.
He would get it when he went to Michigan State, and he just laughed.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That I've talked to players about it who. Like when they yell "Civ" to the goalie, which is the tradition in a lot of arenas, that kind of thing. But goalies, seem to be. I've never heard an opposing player, complain about it. I think they all sort of appreciate it. I know where my son played college soccer, and he played. I forgot the name of the league now, but it's NAIA. Which is really, quality soccer because you can give scholarships. So you have people from all over the world come and play. It was always like a League of Nations every time my son played. But they went down, I think it was Goshen. Is that right?
Yeah, Goshen. So. I've heard of Goshen.
Yeah, Goshen. They played Goshen. And like everybody from the school turns out. So there's like 2,500 people crammed in the stands. And if you're a fullback on the side of the crowd, the Goshen crowd, they're all over you. They find out your name and, they say your name and they call you out and, that kind of thing. And my son, of course, was a defender, a fullback. And he said, I'm thankful I'm playing on the other side, he said.
Oh, man.
So,
I think I wanted to mention real quick, I've got to go in a minute here because I've got to take my son to a doctor's thing. But the whole concept of Cole Caufield being sent down in the first place. 1 assist in 10 games. I know he looked terrible. I know he was tied for the most shots on the team though, which is an interesting statistic, I think, because it does show that he's still creating offense.
They're just protecting him from a bad situation. That's all.
Exactly. I actually give
what
happened with Kotkaniemi is this a good play? Are they handling this the right way?
This is a good play. Yes.
And next year he'll end up with the Carolina Hurricanes. So
that's what I'm trying. It's just like I'm just saying, like. Well, right now, is this the right way to handle this? I mean,
it is because how should you say it? Fool you twice, shame on you. Fool you twice, shame on me. They've learned a lesson that they've ruined Kotkaniemi, putting him in the NHL as an 18-year-old. Cole Caufield won the Hobey Baker. He had a great couple games at the end of the season. Had a really good playoff. He's still 21, 20?
Yeah, he's 21, but he's he's not 18, and they did bring Caufield along slowly.
Don't expose him to a shit show that is right now what is going on in Montreal.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I know they're 11, 12 games into the season. Their season is almost over with right now. I mean,
maybe if things get settled, he scores a little, Carey Price is in there, he'll be back.
Right. And it might not be for the entire year, but right now, alleviate the pressure off of him. Don't make him the centerpiece of the failure of this team. There's enough failures to go around. You don't need to expose Cole Caufield to it.
Right.
Well, I don't feel quite as passionately about it as Mike, but I agree with Mike on this. I think this is a tradition that always happens. A young player goes bad. I was kind of surprised. Like, didn't it feel like Cole Caufield scored more than 4 goals in the playoffs last year?
It definitely. Well, because you know what it was.
He was dangerous all the time.
He was dangerous on every shift. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I went and looked at it because and I don't know what I would have guessed because I didn't give it my
I
thought.
probably would have guessed 6 or 7 for sure.
I would have. I thought that later. I thought I might have guessed 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So I was surprised that he only had 4. But you're right. It was all about him, how dangerous he was. But I think for sure he's coming back up.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And I think they just wanted him to get his confidence back. And this is not totally unexpected with the Canadians. And you lose a player of Shea Weber's magnitude. And
it's not unexpected.
And to fold that in, Frank Saravalli reported today that the Canadians have interest in Vitaly Kravtsov. And I said that would be a good team for him to go to because A, they need the offense. B, the Rangers were smart to put Kravtsov back in Russia where he's going to start scoring again so they can recoup value. And now I do think there's a good deal to be made there. And I think it's good for both. I think you might see something with Montreal.
Got it right, guys. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
But the team that I would like to see go after Kravtsov is Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't know if Buffalo will. I can see the Kings.
Oh, they won't.
Too.
But they won't. But I want them to. I think
it
would be a good.
I think the Kings will do it. I think the Kings will make an offer too because he is their kind of player, and they do need guys that have a high offensive upside that maybe just need a little work. The Kings are really good. Look, they have Kaliev right there right now. I mean, if you want to talk about a one-dimensional guy, he is one of the most one-dimensional guys I ever saw in the draft. But he's scoring.
But he's scoring, and he's surprised. And I saw him play against the Leafs on Monday. He's surprisingly quick. I didn't think
he is fast. He is.
Yeah, he was quicker than I thought he was.
He's got an amazing shot, but he didn't play defense. He's not very physical. Like there are other things to hold him back, but the Kings do bring players along. As far as the Montreal thing, I think Kravtsov really just needs to be in the right frame of mind. And I don't think he was in the right frame of mind with all those things going on with the Rangers. Right. So if you get his head straight, I think you'll get some offense out of him.
Well, just to bring up, continue with the Montreal situation, Carey Price released a statement yesterday. Now, as we suspected, his 30 days was over yesterday, but he's not rejoining the team. The statement that he released said that he was in a residential treatment facility for substance use, that he, was in a dark place, that he really had to, get his life straight for himself and his family. Yeah, I mean, that's the important thing here, Kevin. Him getting his life straightened out. The right now, hockey is secondary. Playing for Team Canada in the Olympics is secondary. I mean, I don't know when he's going to return, but like I said, I mean, right now, I think Montreal's season, I don't think it's over with, but I think that in terms of them making the playoffs, it's going to be a tall, a tall.
Yeah, I don't see them making the playoffs, but I don't. I think from what I read yesterday from the players too, everyone's just sort of saying, Carey, go do what you need to do and come rejoin us when you're ready to go.
He's had a lot of pressure on him for a long time.
We talked about this before, but other than quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers reminded us of that quarterback in Green Bay, and there aren't too many positions in sports that come with the kind of pressure that you get for being a goalie in Montreal, where the history is Plant and Dryden and Bois, and
he carried that franchise for more than a decade. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, they've had just so many great goalies there, and I guess Dallas Cowboys quarterback too. I guess
that's a big one. Yes.
Yeah.
Couple notes here. There is a growing COVID breakout in Ottawa. Josh Brown, the defenseman, is the latest who has entered the protocol. I don't think they played shorthanded. I think they called up 4 or 5 players from Belleville to play against the Bruins yesterday.
And they canceled practice the other day.
Yeah, and now today, about 40 minutes ago, Bruce Garriock reported that Bill Daly came out and said the league is monitoring the situation in Ottawa, and ideally they'd rather not postpone games.
Okay, so if you don't want to postpone games, then you have to do what Kevin suggested, and that is ease up on these roster restrictions.
Yes.
And put in a clause that says you could bring up a guy for a 2-week basis until players are cleared of protocol.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you will be canceling games.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet you could get a special dispensation from the PA over this,
Yes.
because it helps their members as well.
Well, Kev, I heard Pierre LeBrun report yesterday that a number of NHL general managers were quite irked at what happened last weekend regarding the Blues, that the Blues asked for special dispensation because they had some COVID positives or COVID protocol situations. And the league said, no, you can't have, there is no flexibility for you. And it's like, okay, well, if you have a breakout of 4 or 5 players and you can't get those players to your team in time, are you going to play with 15 players? I mean, it's
imagine if this were the Islanders and it happened, and they're still on the road, but in the middle of their road trip, of this long road trip, if this would have happened to them.
Yeah.
That
it's really kind of nutty that we're acting as if we're playing, going to a softball tournament and we're picking up, extra players. Like what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, come on, you got to help these teams out.
Yeah, these aren't ringers. It's not like, yeah, we're playing softball. I'm picking up this guy wearing number 99. His name is Judge. It's like, no, we're not doing that.
We have to talk about I would say a non-controversy that's now turned into a little controversy. So the other night, the Rangers get a 4-3 win. It was against Florida. Shesterkin plays the game. I think he made, 40 saves. He made a lot of saves. It was one of those games where the Rangers held on, but Shesterkin, I thought, gave up a goal or two that he didn't like, and I saw that he looked like he was mad about it. And so he didn't come out to do his twirl when they made him one of the 3 stars. And this is 2 days ago? So yesterday or today, I think it was today actually, Gerard Gallant said, well, hold on. The reason Shesterkin didn't come out was because he had the flu or the stomach flu. And it's like, really? You're going to talk about this 2 days later when everybody was past it already? You don't need to always come up with a PR excuse for a player if in the moment he did what he felt like, he just didn't feel like it. It's okay. Ranger fans weren't mad. But now, of course, it's become a thing.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I got to run. I've got an interview or two. I got to run. Sorry about that. Sorry.
No problem. We'll just finish off with this, Russ.
Okay.
There is a report out of Russia that Leo Komarov, who is obviously with the New York Islanders, has been approached by SKA St. Petersburg to sign with them. This would benefit the cap-strapped New York Islanders, who he's under contract with at $3 million for the remainder of the year. Gee, I wonder, Lou made a phone call to somebody in Russia and said, "Hey, you want Leo Komarov?" I mean, it could be his agent. He could be he got waived.
Somebody's calling on his behalf, though.
Yes,
but it doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
It's so cool. It's so coincidental that, the Islanders are going to get cap relief off of this.
Yes.
I mean,
just get rid of his contract. Boom, it's gone.
It's please. This is the Russian version of Roboda Island. Is what it is.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's a little too convenient. It's one of those things, though, that, I mean, again, like Anthony says, it's cap circumventing. Of course it is. But they're not the only ones who are going to be continuing this. There are other teams this year that will be doing similar things. And we know who these teams are.
3 games tonight in the NHL. The TNT game tonight. What a barn burner TNT has got. Wild Coyotes, the 1-10-1 Coyotes against the 8-3-0 Wild.
So I gotta talk about that for a minute.
Yes.
Not from the TNT perspective, is the Friday game. Somehow ESPN is lucky enough to have the Coyotes as their ESPN spotlight game, and they put Phil Kessel versus, and I forget who the game is against. And I'm thinking, how in the world is it that you've come up with Phil Kessel when he's got 2 goals this year? At least say Clayton Keller, who's got 3 or 4. I mean, it's just I get that there's not a lot of players on that team, but nobody is talking about Phil Kessel anymore unless they're mentioning going to get traded because he's not very good.
Coyotes, Blackhawks. So it's Kessel versus Patrick Kane. That's what it is.
But it's not. Like, this is, again, did we talk about, I don't know, you could name O.J. Simpson with the 49ers. Did we talk about Ronnie Lott when he was with the Jets and promo that? Like, it's
Brett Favre and the New York Jets. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, come on. It's just,
so
I didn't get the promo, but I get it. It's the Coyotes. Why are they on national television anyhow?
Yeah, and twice in 3 days. The other two games, Preds at the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars are under 500, and apparently they're 4 games they've either won in overtime or in shootout. They have not won a game in regulation in 11 games.
They'll be all right, Mike.
Yeah, and of course the big one. The Toronto Maple Leafs visit the Philadelphia Flyers. That game will be on NHL Network and
7:30 start. I dread the 7:30 start.
Yeah, I don't particularly like the 7:30 start. I mean, if it's I don't know. Is it because it's on NHL Network and Sportsnet?
Yes.
I mean, yes, but John Tavares and Andre Kasha are game time decisions.
Andre Kasha is always going to be a game time decision.
Okay.
Both of these Kashas get hurt all the time.
I'll come to his defense this year, Russ.
Of course you will.
Well, no, I'm just saying he hasn't been hurt
yet.
Up until the last game when he got hit in the wrist or the elbow area. He's been healthy. He's been fine. He's been effective. He's a defensive forward. I mean, I think gone are the days of him scoring 20 goals, but he's been decent as a third line guy. Obviously, if Tavares doesn't play, that's going to be an impact for the Leafs, but I mean, we'll see. But it should be an entertaining game. So
here's the thing. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I probably have 20-something posts between this year and last year talking about Andre Kasha. He's playing, he's not playing. He's playing in the playoffs, he's not playing. He's got a concussion, he's not playing. He has injury problems. But go ahead, please tell us about how Nick Ritchie is going to be good with the team too.
I'm not disputing that Kasha has had injury problems in the past. I mean, he only played 4 games last year. He's played every game this year. That's all I'm saying.
All 11 or whatever.
Right. But
it's the 10th of the season. Come on. 8th of the season, whatever.
Okay.
Thank you. But why don't we talk about Nick Ritchie? We got a minute. How's he doing?
For the departed Eklund.
Talk about Nick Ritchie. I asked you a direct question.
He's been a disappointment so far.
Okay.
For the departed Eklund, for the departed Kevin Allen, for the cynic Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz,